Hi, I'm Andrew Benioff, the founder and chairman of the Independent Lodging Congress. Here today with Marc Lotenberg, CEO of Surface Media, and really happy to be having a conversation with you, Marc. You're going to be speaking at one of our panels coming up in a few minutes, and the title of that panel is Makers of Taste, and we chose it because we want to sort of explore what new things are happening and how, who decides on what's cool and what's going to be the next thing. And so we chose you for that panel.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. But who do you think you guys have a pretty broad view from your perch at Surface of, sort of what's going on in design and art and hotels and travel and a whole bunch of other things. Who are some of the makers of taste that you see sort of up and coming?
Taste is so subjective, right? Because you can, you deal with. We have a funny thing. We deal with investors and other people, and they're looking and they're like, you say one of your core differentiating aspects of what makes Surface so special is the team's taste and the editorial taste factor and the company's taste factor, and they're like, but how do we build this into a spreadsheet? We still need to figure out how to, and I'm like, you can't. It's just one of those things that you can't quantify taste. There's no formula for taste. It's it's either you have it or you don't. I think it's also somewhat, obviously also subjective, because it could be taste factor for what? How do you differentiate what's good art or what's not good art, or what's good architecture or not? Someone's taste factor might be they like contemporary. Some people might
sure,
more traditional, but we look through one lens, and I'd say it's more of a contemporary design lens, and that's for so many different. We can do that to, from a building to a person to a product to a firm to kind of anything. And I think that to answer your question, I guess, is who are the new tastemakers? I guess
yeah, one or two, or even a product, whatever, something that's up and coming. You think we ought to keep our eyes on.
I'm probably more of the opinion that I like more timeless and less of we don't really chase up and coming. I've been in that world before, and up and coming is it's not harder. It's actually easier because you're just doing of the moment, but those people might go up and down really fast. I think what's so interesting is someone like an Ian Schrager, right, who has reinvented himself time after time after time, and continual every time he does something, it's a hit. And look at his longevity of his career. I think that's so much more impressive to me. The people that are not the the hit maker that has the cool song right now, but the person who's been doing it for 30, 40 years and consistently has great taste and
still listening to the Beatles.
Yeah, totally, right? So it's that taste to me is the long-term taste, and that's what, when we're doing covers of the magazine, the number one thing we always ask is, if someone picked this up in 20 years or 10 years or even 5 years from now, because everyone has short attention span, would they think this was right also 5 years or 10 years later? And that's what's hard to do about the covers, is finding these people that have staying power, and they're just not of the moment.
Really, really interesting. So when you and I spoke on the phone a little while ago, you talked about choices we make in, fashion or items for our home, car, whatever, things that you're going to purchase.
Right.
And looking at, how we make those decisions of what we buy. A lot of people are brand loyal. If for a long time I was very loyal to Ferragamo.
Yep.
And I'd only buy their shoes, and I just loved them, and I still love them.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not as loyal solely to them anymore. Tastes change, things change, whatever. But you talked about something that I thought was really interesting, which is the value of sort of curating things or choosing super high quality over a brand, or quality over quantity. Instead of having 50 pairs of shoes, you have one really nice pair that you love, but you take care of.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So, you bring up Ferragamo, it's an interesting point. These brands are, they've been around for a while, and they find ways to, these brands are also realizing the need for reinvention. Today, they just announced Paul Andrew, who's a really hot, shoe designer, and also is doing some of the creative direction for them on the shoes. They just made him the creative director of the whole brand for women's wear. And these brands realize like that, you know, they're far more in reality than we all think. Like they know that like their consumer doesn't think Ferragamo's cool. So like they have to reinvent and find ways to bring back cool. Gucci's another brand that, you know, 10 years ago it was like you wouldn't catch anyone wearing it. It was just like so out and so kind of gaudy and cheesy. Now it's the hottest brand again, and it's that level of taste is they found ways to figure out who are those tastemakers and how do you kind of look through a different lens and bring it back. But brands aren't hot or not. You know, brands don't just die anymore. You know, Adidas is another brand that just pulled a magic like rabbit out of their hat over the last 5 years, and then they bought Reebok at a bankruptcy, and Reebok is now like the coolest shoe you could buy right now. In some would say maybe it hasn't hit the mass world yet, but like in the like kind of the underground world, it's such a hot brand. Adidas, no one knows Adidas really is running it, but these brands can be resurrected now with like really cool people and tastemakers around it. So in terms of also to answer your question, the longevity factor, I'd say buying an item for me, I'm a super snob, so I'd rather spend more money on something that's going to last than, you know, I don't buy the disposable fashion or the disposable items. I know a lot of people do. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it.
Just your personal preference.
My personal preference, I think I'd rather buy something that's well made, that has like a story behind it, or good craftsmanship, and like it, you know, it feels better on, it fits better. You can tell like a cheap item from, you know, a really nice item. And if I like something, I'll buy. Like I like these shoes. It's like my 10th pair of buying them. You know, I'll buy just the same, you know, things once I like something, because. But I have a lot. I like shoes, so I get a lot of shoes. So
I'm right there with you. I mean, I opt for fewer things rather than greater, and of higher quality, and I try to take care of them. But that's also something that I think comes with maturity, perhaps, and some level of disposable income, obviously.
Maturity, but also like education. I think some of the greatest things that the social and digital world has brought everyone is an understanding of design, and an understanding and appreciation for like quality versus quantity, and understanding like, okay, that bag, you know, whether it's $2,000, $5,000, $20,000, it's not like who would ever buy a $10,000 bag. People now understand like, oh, I understand what goes into it. I understand the process. I understand like the craftsmanship behind it. I understand that's going to hold or appreciate its value. It's not just a bag. It's a piece of, I don't want to say it's a piece of art, but it is some type of like
usable piece of design.
Yeah, usable piece of design that has a value versus, you know, your disposable Michael Kors, I don't want to say disposable Michael Kors bag, but yeah, I mean, you know, at the same time, I think Michael Kors, as much as everyone hates on it, is a gateway for people that would never ever buy like a Louis Vuitton bag or something, and they get the Michael Kors bag, they see how people like react to them, and they're like, oh, maybe they would have bought a 9 West $20 bag, and they bought the $200 Michael Kors bag, and they see how it like feels, and then they're like, well, if this is how I feel with this, if I go buy that $800 Louis Vuitton bag,
I'll be 4 times as happy.
Yeah, and then they get that bag, and they see how it makes them feel, and it inspires them. It gives them confidence to walk out the door, and it's this like gateway drug of luxury items.
Love it, love it. Very interesting. So, you in your September issue, you're talking about craftsmanship, and automation, primarily as it has to do with fashion. But can you elaborate on that, and how are automation and customization sort of affecting that industry right now?
Well, product is so, you know, there's a ubiquitous nature of product right now, and, you know, obviously with everything that's happening with e-commerce, and the same product you can buy in New York is the same product you can find in London, or Sydney, or Tokyo. Wherever you're going, it's the same thing now. So the consumers is kind of anti that right now. So the brands have to use automation, because you can't sit there and make individualized items by city or by genre for different things, like by hand. You just can't do it. It's not scalable, and these brands have to still have scale. So that's where the automation could come in, but still with like a good quality. Automation doesn't mean it's crap. It just means that like it has to be done the right way through a you know, really good, you know, criteria and really good like control systems. And that's how they're going to be able to get customized products into different areas and make different colorways for different cities and, you know, more limited quantities of items. Still make 10,000 bags, but maybe 50 different versions and different colorways that go to different markets and have limited editions, because no one wants to really have the same exact thing as everyone else, except Apple, I guess. We all use Apple phones.
I do. I like to be different.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.